You're watching Marketing Matters with Colin Carasquillo, exclusively on CBT News.
Back to another installment of Marketing Matters. I'm your host, Colin Carasquillo, proud to partner with CBT News, bringing you the latest and greatest in the automotive industry. Buckle up for this one. I think you're going to find a lot of value in today's episode called Top of Mind, Bottom Line: How Relevant Messaging Drives Car Dealership Growth. Now, in today's competitive car sales environment, visibility is key. How do you make sure that your dealership and your marketing, for that matter, stands out amongst the competition? Now, we know the space has gotten so hyper-competitive, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I think at any given point in time, dealers are all vying for the same consumer, and it's 2% of the population. I believe that's the entire population. So we're all vying for 2% of the entire population who may be in market for a vehicle at any given point in time. And that number then gets smaller and smaller as you go down to your hyper-local market. Could be a fraction of a percent by the time that we just focus on New Jersey or where your dealership's located. So once again, with that few people, how do we ensure that your dealership is getting the right shot to get a person into a new vehicle from your store or chooses your dealership for servicing? The answer, simple but not, is don't be afraid to stay top of mind by staying on top. Let me unpack that. I have a wonderful service that I take part in. And this service, no free advertising, but this service is called Wineex, wineex.com. Actually created by Gary Vaynerchuk. And a lot of people probably know Gary V. He's a very prolific business thought leader in not just automotive. He's very relevant here, but of course in other verticals. Gary V used to work at a business called Wine Library, which actually is headquartered in my town of Scotch Plains. That's right, where I live. Now, that's not why I chose to live in Scotch Plains, but definitely a nice benefit of being there in the same market. Wine Library, very self-explanatory to what it is. Massive building, tons of wine, almost like a library with a bunch of books. Gary's always been a guy focused on e-commerce, right? Now, dealers, we've always been focused on our inventory and selling cars. And a lot of that's changed over the past years, of course, with the introduction of the internet and virtual retailing or digital retailing, and now artificial intelligence, right? All these things that we can package together to make a seamless shopping experience for a consumer. So what Gary did is he took his dad's business and he said, I'm going to digitize it. I'm going to make it something that will be more e-commerce driven. That's going to give our consumers the ability to essentially purchase wine with a few clicks of a button on their mobile device. Now, I signed up for Wineex, and Wineex will send you a daily text message with deals. Various wines from different areas of all over the world. And it will have descriptions, it will have rankings, it will have scores, it will have taste profiles at what this wine's similar to. And from there, all you need to do, it can be very dangerous, of course, because you've uploaded your credit card information. So meaning I'm going to just keep ordering wine. It's automatic, right? All you have to do is send a number. 1, 2, 10, 30. That's how many bottles of wine you want of that type of wine that they just broadcasted. Now, why I bring this up is because here's something, an entity that I'm interested in, okay, that sends me a message daily. Whether I look at the message or not is up to me, especially when it's a text message. But the point is, I can always, without fail, anticipate a wine text message coming in, and I will glance at it. If I want the wine or need the wine, I will act. If I don't, I move on. This is how dealers need to think. Dealers no longer can be afraid about how many times they are getting in front of a consumer or touching a consumer. And what I mean by that is how many points of outreach they have. You know, it used to be, well, you can't bombard the consumer. You're going to deter them from, wanting to do business with you. That philosophy may be true, but it's only true if you are not sending relevant messaging that resonates with the consumer to them in these various channels of outreach. If I submitted a lead on an SUV, a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and the response I get from your CRM is an automated email response that has missing form fields, thank you, your name or first name for submitting your inquiry on insert make and model, I'm going to look at that and it's not going to resonate with me, okay? Because you have broken technology there. So first and foremost, that's probably something dealers need to look into, is make sure that all of those form fields in their CRM are actually populating. But you have to go above and beyond that, because that's an automated response. There's no personalization to that. There's nothing special about that. Every dealer can send an automated response, and most likely every dealer does, right? It comes right out of their CRM. It has those form fields in it. It's kind of that safety, stop the clock mentality, right? They submitted a lead. The OEM is gauging us or judging us based upon how quickly we're responding to it. Have the automated email go out, stop the clock. So ultimately, if the content is not relevant, okay, it's not going to matter how often you send something, because it won't ever resonate. Then it does become a burden. It becomes intrusion to the consumer. It's going to leave them with a bad taste in their mouth. They most likely won't do business with you. But if you send relevant messaging frequently, you're going to have a lot of success. Why? Because it's constant visibility. We already talked about how competitive the space is. We already talked about the small percentage of people that dealers and marketers are all vying for. I think a lot of us then, when we end up submitting or creating opportunities for a dealership, we go, okay, I created the opportunities. Now it's up to the salespeople to ultimately convert the opportunities. And at the end of the month, if you didn't sell more cars, salespeople say, we didn't get enough opportunities from marketing. And marketing says, well, they didn't close enough opportunities. You can't think like that anymore. You have to think about, how does it all work together holistically? Marketing is going to generate opportunities. Hopefully they're qualified opportunities. And then sales is going to convert the opportunities, but ultimately sales has tools or a process that they need to implement to ensure that those opportunities being generated by marketing do in fact convert. And it's about sending relevant messaging back to, or tying back to, what the marketing messaging was, and doing so frequently, okay? When your message speaks directly to a consumer's needs, desires, or even, past interactions, they're going to appreciate your outreach. Plain and simple. They'll appreciate your outreach. Wow, they really took the time to understand what I was looking for. They understand that, yes, I submitted a lead on this vehicle, but in the comment section, I asked about price point or equipment. And they took the time to go through all of that and answer my exact question. They did so in a personalized fashion. And hopefully, if you get that engagement then from the consumer because you gave them personal outreach, you continue to chat with that consumer, and you do so frequently, right? And you take the conversation from there. And once again, you make it something that's actually what the consumer would look forward to. It's an interaction with a human that is special, right? Because it's setting you apart from all the other dealers who just end up doing cookie cutter email automated templates or cookie cutter text messages, so on and so forth. Let's look at some data, right? So according to a Salesforce study, okay, 80% of consumers are more likely to make a purchase when brands offer personalized experiences, okay? So when we're just sending out these generic emails because it's what we have to do in our activities, we're doing ourselves more harm than good, okay? Once again, the personalization and the content of the actual outreach, the relevance of the outreach matter more than the frequency. But when you pair both together, you're going to really start seeing higher conversion rates, more engagement from your consumers, probably more buy-in from your sales staff, so on and so forth, because they're going to be seeing something that's now tangible, right? They're having those conversations, they're having those interactions. They know marketing's generating these activities and opportunities for them. So ultimately, the key takeaways, let's boil it down to this. You want to keep your outreach relevant and frequent, okay? When you're sending frequent messages, you want to ensure that they are personalized, that they're relevant. It's the foundation that ensures your messages are viewed as a welcomed form of outreach, right? not intrusive, but rather helpful. You can send out 3 or 4 emails per week to customers who have shown interest in a specific type of vehicle. Maybe it's an electric vehicle or whatever their vehicle of interest is. When you do that, and it's relevant and personalized outreach, you will have higher revenue. I guarantee it. You're going to convert more and you're going to have higher revenue because you're converting at a higher rate. This will be the exact opposite for someone who sends out frequent messages that don't say anything, that are just those templated messages that probably have been added into the CRM back in the 80s and ultimately are the same follow-up and templates that are being used today in 2025. The fact of the matter is all of that needs to change. You need to clean that out. You need to rebuild, and you do so by making it personalized and relevant to the consumer. An Omnisend 2023 report, so now this is dated a little bit, right? But dealerships sending 3 to 4 emails per week typically generate a higher revenue per recipient. Once again, this just references back the fact that, hey, when you send out personalized content, that's relevant content, and you do so frequently, right? You have all of that together, you are going to generate more opportunities and more opportunities for revenue. Okay. That was email. Of course, we have phone calls, we have text messages. Text messages, I'm a massive fan of course, going back to the wine text example at the beginning of this episode. So text messages, 90% of text messages are read within 3 minutes, right, of being received. That's exceptionally powerful. Even if no one engages or acts on them, at least the text message is received and read. Okay, now some people have their read receipts on and you can actually see when they read it. So at least you know that the consumer saw your message. Whether or not they decided to act with it, that's up to them. But at least you got the shot, right? Text messaging is one of the most effective ways to maintain visibility, without being intrusive or overwhelming customers. That's why it's one of my favorite forms of outreach. Of course, you can be persistent via text message. You want to follow up text messages with phone calls and emails, but a text message is just a great way to send a little tickler to someone. You know, it can be personal, but it's also a little impersonal. People can choose to respond or not. And that's where you start, seeing a lot of success. People have a lot of interest in having these conversations, but really don't want to necessarily pick up the phone or respond to an email, but they will respond to a text message or give a reaction emoji or so on and so forth. Second takeaway, right? Don't fear frequency, fear irrelevance. All right. If your customers are receiving messages, text messages, emails, phone calls that don't directly meet their needs, just stop altogether. Okay. Frequency is not the problem if you have everything being personalized and relevant. Okay. It shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you're paying attention to their interests. You're ready to serve them, with the offers that you have available that actually resonate with them. Right. The frequency of irrelevant messages, we can drive customers to unsubscribe or disengage. We can't afford that at this moment in time. The space has become very hyper competitive, and by bombarding people with irrelevant messages, you are going to have them unsubscribe or disengage. You will lose that opportunity. However, relevant messages at a high frequency, that's the key for success. All right. Lastly, stay visible, be helpful. Staying top of mind just isn't about staying top of mind, doing just that, staying on the top of an inbox or staying at the top of a text message, box, so on and so forth. It's about providing value with every interaction, plain and simple. And now you may ask, well, how does this deal with marketing? Well, it very much deals with marketing, because marketing is going to generate the opportunities. And then if they're not handled properly because of the lack of outreach or lack of frequency or impersonal messaging, it all goes back to marketing, right? So in order for it to work, you need to work collectively with your sales department, so on and so forth. And they need to be sending this type of messaging out. You shouldn't fear staying top of mind. You should truly fear being forgotten. Okay. Keep your communication relevant, timely, and helpful, and the results will speak for themselves, plain and simple. So by maintaining top of mind awareness that adds value to consumers' experience, you may think, hey, they're going to think of you when they are ready to purchase. Embrace the consistent outreach, stay relevant, and watch your dealership's performance soar. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Marketing Matters. I'll catch you on another installment.
Thanks for watching Marketing Matters with Colin Carasquillo. exclusively on CBT News.